Hey everybody, welcome back to the American Discovery Tour podcast. This week we're going to be talking about our time in New Hampshire. We've got all kinds of cool stories for you, from staying with a family of 6 in this Finnish subculture where the guy had built his entire own house for his family, fostered a bunch of children, and created an amazing story. We've got time in the capital where we had some amazing adventures, met some amazing people. And then we've got a really cool stories to share about getting to go to a free show with a famous America's Got Talent winning musician and rock group, and spending time with an amazing family in that same area. It was pretty incredible. So we'll dive in. We'll just give you an overview of what we did in New Hampshire, and we're glad you're here. If you're watching this right now and you're a part of this tour, or you're listening on your favorite, podcast listening to app, please like this. Leave a review, give us a support, feed the algorithm so that we can get this out there to more people so that they can learn about people all across the US and just get inspired to go out and create their own adventure, to travel the world. That's what we want to see, is people to get excited about meeting new people, traveling to new places, and just becoming alive in their life. So thanks for being here. Donovan, glad to see you, like every day.
Every single day.
Every single day. How you doing today, man?
Oh, pretty good. Got some good coffee, so I'm pretty happy about that. Cheers.
Cheers. That's right.
Yeah. Ready to jump in.
All right. So we came into New Hampshire from Vermont, and we rolled into a little town called Rindge, New Hampshire. For context, Rindge is this small town in New Hampshire that has a large Finnish subculture. So a bunch of people from Finland immigrated over to the US and settled in this area of New Hampshire. And we got to stay with someone who was born in the US, but parents came over from Finland. It was Calvin,
his wife,
Calvin and Nisi, and their 6 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 who they fostered, and then 3 who were their biological children. What was it like knowing that we were pulling into New Hampshire for our first day, staying with a family of 6 kids for you, man?
Well, little context. Less than 24 hours earlier, you fell and potentially broke your hand. We just had gotten off the mountain. Did we stay with them that first night? No. We stayed in a hotel the night before. Because when we had left Lisa's, we got off the mountain. We stayed in a hotel.
No.
Didn't we? Did we stay with them the first night?
Yeah, we stayed with them the first night.
Wow. Yeah, that was why. So I'm not a big person when it comes to kids.
You actually are a big person.
I am a big person when it comes to kids. But kids stress me out. It's always ooh. So I didn't know what to expect, and when I was told there's going to be 6 of them, I was like, all right, well, let's see how this goes. Pretty sure it was at least sprinkling, if not raining, that evening, and we had pulled in, and everybody was sitting on the porch waiting for us to get there. And other than, I think it was one of them was riding their bike into the driveway, like almost like pacing around the end, waiting for us. But Brody, right? I think it was Brody that was doing that, and that was absolutely terrifying.
Oh yeah, we show up. This family's all out on the porch. They told me, before we confirmed our stay with them, Calvin said, I won't tell the kids that you're coming until we confirm, because they get really excited whenever we have people come stay with us. And that was exactly it. They were jumping around, super excited to see us. I love kids. They're like, I don't know, I think they're like God's greatest gift to the earth. I find myself just loving the experience of the chaos. And so I was kind of excited. Donovan was like, 6?
6? Are you sure it's not 4 and then the parents, like family of 6? No, it's family of 8 and 6 of them.
Family of 8. The amazing thing is we pull up, and Calvin had built this house, huge house and garage, and he had done most of the work himself. He contracted a few things out, but for the most part, he built the house. He built it with a lot of the materials from the land.
Even rented out, like he bought his own backhoe and dug the basement out and everything himself, learned how to do all that.
It's absolutely crazy. And that first night, they gave us like a mattress setup in their basement, which is a nice basement. Very nice house he's built.
Swing set inside the basement.
Swing set inside the basement. It was amazing. I totally was swinging on the swing set down there. I was loving it. The kids were excited. They were swinging up, kicking the ceiling, coming back down, telling us stories about hitting their head on the ceiling.
He's actually had a dent in the one side from where I think it was Brody hit it again. Ended up hitting his head on the ceiling.
It was crazy. And these kids are
completely safe. It was completely safe.
These kids are age ranged like 2 to 10, right? I think the youngest was 2.
I think Brody is 10. Yeah, it's either 9 or 10 or something like that. He's right around that age.
So super young kids. They were crazy. They were just running around the whole time. But it was really something. We plopped down in there, spent the night, really easy evening. And then we woke up. I went to a coffee shop to work for the day. I had a lot of meetings to do that day. And so I went to do work at this amazing coffee shop. It's one of the best coffee shops that I've been to. If you watched or listened to the Pennsylvania episode, we talked about Elixir Coffee, one of the coolest coffee shops in Philadelphia, and they got coffee from that coffee shop. So we got to experience some more of that, and I sat up in this beautiful loft and worked and met local people who came in. And if you follow our Instagram, you can go see the stories. I interviewed this pastor who was up there working across from me for several hours and put his story up, and it was just a great time. And didn't you end up staying at the house?
Yep, I ended up staying at the house that day. I was editing probably a vlog at that point in time. Didn't have a whole lot on the plate, so I was like, oh, the kids are gonna go to school. I'll stick around. There's gonna be like 2 of them still. Turns out that only 2 of them go to school, and the rest of them are homeschooled or below. But they did a really good job entertaining themselves. Nisi was there; she did all the homeschooling, and they ended up getting all the homeschooling done in like the first half of the day. So it was really cool, like to see her. To see a parent go and like read to a kid, like, which is something that I don't feel like happens as much. It was cool because they all gathered around her. She was reading stories, and I actually sat there and listened at one point in time. I was like, oh, let's see what's going on. Talked about, I want to say it was a story about a bear or something like that. I'm not sure. But yeah, it was good. Got a lot of progress done. It was just a beautiful house. I loved it.
Yeah, just getting to soak that in. That night, the first night we stayed, that second night, we sat in the living room later when the kids went to bed, and man, Nisi was great at getting these kids to bed. They went to bed at like 9 or something o'clock, and they were in bed. It was really amazing. 6 kids, and all of a sudden the house was quiet for the rest of the night. And we sat around with them and talked psychology. They were asking me, so if you guys don't know, I'm doing a PhD in psychology, and I've studied a lot of different types of psychology. And they were asking me questions about child development, which I've taken a couple classes related to that. That's not my specialty, but we were just talking about child development and how to help children, especially the children they fostered, be able to integrate into the family, be able to better connect with them. And I was not giving them doctor advice or anything. I don't have that specialty. We just talked about their experience and some of the theories I'd learned about in psychology. And it was really fun because they were so interested in figuring out how they could be better parents. They were looking for any information they could possibly find to help them do a better good job as parents. And that was really inspiring to me. Yeah, I think that was mostly the first night. Anything you want to add for that night?
No. Was that the night? So that was the first night. so we kind of like took a half step backwards.
That was Monday night, I think. First night we just kind of went to bed, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Either way, Sunday and Monday.
First night we talked to them. Second night we interviewed. Third night was the show.
Yeah, you're right.
So
you're right. So the first night we did that. Sunday and Monday kind of blur because we did a lot of the same things. But yeah, so we talked with them, did that, and then you're exactly right. That was like the biggest thing, is that we did a life story interview with Calvin. And that was pretty amazing. A life story interview is a structured interview where you have somebody sit down and map out their life as if it were a story and literally give chapter titles and a plot line and figure out what did my life look like. And then you have them reflect on meaningful moments and events in their life. This is the first one that we conducted. Wow. That was crazy to watch this guy who is a tough auto mechanic. He owned his own mechanics business. He built this house himself. Very tough guy. He starts reflecting on his life and he starts breaking down crying. And it was so beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful moments on this tour by far.
Yeah, I was sitting, and I think I was doing more editing at this point in time, and I realized that he was starting to choke up a little bit, and I was like, okay, it's time for me to take my headphones off and be more present for this moments here.
Yeah, that was wild. He was talking about how when he would go through the process of fostering children, they would have to go to basically like court, and the parent would see their child for the last time before their child goes into foster care. And he was talking about how bad he wished he could like encourage that parent. And he realized how hard it must be to watch your child go. And he was talking about how he wishes he could just go like, give them some encouragement to help straighten their lives out and be able to get their children back someday. And he started crying. And he said he had never thought about what that would feel like. And as he was doing that, he really choked up. And there were other moments he reflected on, relationship with his dad and how he always wanted to make his dad proud, and just listening to this guy go deep in his life. And we're really excited to do more of these interviews because they're extremely powerful for us to hear, but really for the person to express. So that was good. Anything else about that? We might take a clip. Let us know if it's something you like. We might take clips from those types of interviews, the really juicy parts, the ones that are really inspiring or kind of where people come alive, and put that on this podcast as well. So let us know. If you're watching this, send a comment. Be like, I want to see the life story. I want to hear these stories. Let us know, and we'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, no, that was when he told us about everything from. Was that when he was also telling us about all of the traveling that he did?
Yeah.
And that was cool. He had like went and traveled across, I think Europe and Australia. I think is what he had said. Being like almost like a migrant worker. I think he said that he was almost fishing for these like delicacy like I don't know if they were like clams or fish of some sort, and he's like these people. He sort of talked about eating this animals, whatever it was, but where you might go get like a fancy dinner and have it, but then them eating it like almost like it was a hamburger, just eating as much of it as they wanted, because that's just how he like worked for people and stayed with them whilst he was traveling, going from place to place and place. And I thought that was kind of cool. He'd been all over the place, and I think that was that trip. I think it was that trip when he met Nisi late towards the end.
I think there's two. There's one, two. I think he was in Australia when he did that trip, and then the other trip he went to Finland. Okay. Back where his family's from, and met his wife. Yeah, that was crazy, man. There are so many people out there with these amazing travel stories, and who've just like worked random odd jobs to make it throughout the places they wanted to travel. And you can do that. Like, there's so many ways to do that. If you're interested in that, Google it. Like, how to travel the world by working for people. There's amazing like sites out there, apps to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, he's traveled all over. What's crazy?
The only other thing I think we did that day was we went and we took him to his shop, and he showed us around his shop earlier in that day. Yeah, I think that kind of wraps up that day.
Yeah, showed us his shop. Talked about the life of an auto mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about the tension between he loves to fix cars and he loves to really fix them in a way that'll help whoever he's fixing them for. But running a business creates a lot of tension because there's a lot of work to running the business of being a mechanic that is kind of painful. He doesn't get to spend his whole day working, and he really wishes he could just spend that whole time, working for people. So that was good to hear. The next day, I think the big highlight, I did another work day. I think we worked in the daytime, and then the evening, scheduled the magic show. Donovan did a spectacular magic show for all of the Finnish subculture.
To preface this, like the first or second day, Calvin asks, it's like, oh, would you mind doing a little show for the kids? I was like, oh yeah, it'll be like 6-8 people. I'm like, that should be fine. And he's like, okay, cool. Mind if we invite some like my brother and his kids or something like that? And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be like 10, 12, 14, maybe 14 people. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, I don't do kids magic. It's not my like forte, like where I spend most of my time. And then it's time for the show, and some people show up. I'm like, okay, cool. This is cool. This will be fine. Some more people show up. I'm like, oh, okay. Like some more people show up, and eventually I'm like, how many people are going to be here? And I think counting you, I believe it was 35 people packed into this living room, and then me. And I was like, and everybody's like in chairs, on benches, sitting on the stairs, waiting. And oh man, that was fun. It went really well, I think. Hindsight, I got a little bit of preparation that I need to do if I'm going to do a kid show again, just to be a little more fluent. But I think it went well. Started off with some juggling, which I don't juggle very well. Kind of just like as a nice little attention getter, and then went through a handful of things, and all went, I think, fairly well. You got to watch it.
Yeah, it was fun. I was sitting in the back. I was watching you, but I was also watching all the kids, all the families, and it was amazing. So many people just shocked by any given trick. They were so engaged. They were very excited. And it was amazing to be able to share that. That, like in this couch surfing thing that we're doing to make it across the U.S. right now, that's what it's really about, is you come with something to share. A talent, a skill, a perspective. I'll share my knowledge of psychology. He'll share his magic. In this case, he got to do this huge show. I think he crushed it. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. You pulled a piece of a card out of an orange that matched another card. I mean, you did some crazy things. And it was really good.
Kids were super well behaved. I was very happy about that. That's my fear when it comes to kids magic, is that that they're going to be running around and like it's going to be a circus. And I think having all the parents there was really helpful. So, but I really appreciate it. It went way better than I expected. So
good. I'm glad. It was super fun. They all enjoyed it. We had delicious homemade cookies afterwards. It was really good. And that was pretty much the big highlight. The next day, we did a little bit of work and got out of there, and we got a gift.
Yeah. We went, when we had drove Calvin to his shop, we were sitting there talking, said for some reason we were talking, I think it had just started raining, and we were like, oh man, I got to get new wiper blades, because we had, long story short, we had realized we needed new wiper blades. We went to get some. I bought the wrong ones. We went back in to get them again. We bought the right ones. We tried to put them on the car. They wouldn't go on the car, so apparently they weren't the right ones. And then we ended up taking those back and just running with the wiper blades we had on. But when we were taking Calvin to his shop, it was sprinkling, and first time this had ever happened, I turned the wiper blades on, and when we were messing with them, we must have done something, and one of them popped off. I was like, whoa, I was like, that never happened before. But Calvin said, I should be able to order whatever parts you need, and you can just settle up at the end. And then he ended up Yeah, gifting him to us at the end.
Yeah, he was like, here's a little gift to help you along the road and to encourage you on your tour. And mind you, this is after we stayed at his house for like 3 nights and they fed us every day.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, we're part of their family for like 3 days. It was really magical. Thanks, Calvin.
Yeah,
Nisi,
thank you, Calvin.
everybody.
Nisi.
That was incredible. If you listen to this, you made our week. That was amazing. So yeah, we rolled out of there.
Oh,
you got something else?
One thing, because there was a kid that you bonded with fairly well, I feel like. Lilia, was it?
Lilia? Oh yeah, my little buddy.
We didn't even talk about Lilia.
Yeah, one of their daughters that she was just so high spirited and really friendly and wanted to hang out. And every time I'd walk in, she'd come hang out with me like the whole time. And we just had a lot of conversation. She's like, I don't know, 7.
I think she was just
8.
a little. I think she was 8 or 9. Yeah,
8 or 9.
Just right below Brody.
Yeah, but she was super sweet, super kind, and we just talked a lot. It was great. I love that. I always like to bond with kids. I talk to them like they're little adults and ask them questions like I do everyone else. And it was really fun. It was a great time. She inspired me. She's really good, really awesome person. But yeah, so we roll out of Ringe, amazing, into the capital.
Yep.
Concord. We originally were going to go stay with someone an hour north of the capital, but accidentally found ourselves in the capital
for lunch.
Yeah, for lunch. And we were like, you know what? We're just going to hunker down here. We grabbed a hotel because we were going to come back there the next day. And we stayed in Concord.
Yep. That night we filmed the previous podcast, or maybe the one before that. I don't remember which one. We filmed one there.
Filmed New York there.
New York there. Yes.
Yeah, filmed the podcast there in the hotel. We were rearranging things in like this one room.
We like pulled furniture in from the hallway, and it was like, better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah.
Situation.
Oh, that night was cool too because we filmed that podcast. We broke open some whiskey we were gifted in New York. If you watch the New York podcast, you can hear all about it. You can see what we were doing. And that night, I went down to the hot tub. And I went to the hot tub, and I sat down. I was writing a story about someone we met that day. And this woman walks in. You know, she's probably like 22, 23, jumps in the hot tub with me. And she said something to me, and I started talking to her. And her boyfriend had been just traveling the world, living on the road. Literally, they were doing they were train hopping, and is that what that's called? I don't know.
I think so.
Where they jump on trains that are moving and take them across the country. They did a bunch of that, and I sat and talked to them for a while, and their stories were insane. This guy I'm talking to, he was talking about how he did this with his life and lost several of his friends on the train tracks and stuff, and I was like, whoa.
Like they died or
They died.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. Like, I mean, it was crazy. These people were really, like, seriously traveling around. He was a musician, and they were busking. Sometimes they'd make enough money, they'd stay at a hotel. Other times they'd be camping, staying in I think they had a van or a car they were staying in. Talked to them. So that was an interesting night.
You had ended up meeting the other student, the guy that was studying bugs.
Yeah, we were looking for a story, and I met this PhD student. We have the story featured on our Instagram, and he was studying spiders and something else, doing some crazy research. It was like how spiders and grasshoppers or something like interact. It was really wild. And how climate affects that interaction and changes the whole landscape of the earth. The dude was really cool.
Interesting.
Met him in the hotel, chatted with him. And that was cool because every day one of our tasks is to meet someone, learn enough about them to feel like we actually got to know them and form a connection, and then share that as a story for you guys if you're following on our social media. Some days that is easy. It happens like beginning of the day, you know, we just meet someone and we got it. Other times it can get to 8, 9 p.m. Maybe been on the road, had a lot going on, and we haven't met anyone yet. And we were at that point where we got to go actually out there and try to find someone today. And then boom, Guy walks in at the same time as me, and I just had this amazing conversation. It was great. So yeah.
I think at the same time, I was sitting there trying to get a story from the hotel dog lady. So I was talking,
Yeah.
lady and her owner, and I was talking to him, and I was like, "So what's Lady's core value?" And she was like, "Does like everybody get pets? Is that what it was?" But I think she ended up saying we didn't end up posting this one. That she wanted to protect mom because I think that's what I think.
Wow.
Because anywhere that my goodness, what was her name? I don't remember what the
Awesome hotel lady.
the concierge name was, but yeah, anywhere she would go, Lady would follow her and be with her all the time. So I think that's what Lady's core value was, if I remember correctly.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was really a great time. And then we woke up that morning and we adventured to Concord.
Mm-hmm.
We went out, we hit a nice coffee shop, Rebel Stoke. It was good.
Coolest clock that I've seen.
Coolest clock I've ever seen, yeah. That was wild. And then we went to the Capitol, or the State House.
Yep, we did the State House that day.
It's the longest State House tour I've ever done. I think we were in there for like 3 hours or something like that.
With Nick.
With Nick, an amazing tour guide. And if you don't know this about New Hampshire is the first place. If you're in Iowa, don't get mad at us. We haven't been there yet. We haven't heard your side of this argument. But New Hampshire is the first place for the presidential candidates when they start the election cycle. So all the candidates, anybody who's going to run for president, come through this small town in New Hampshire, the capital. And so there's pictures all over the building of all these past presidents or people who ran. It's amazing. It's so cool.
Yeah, they took us in the little office where they said if you want to run for president, you can do it here. All you have to do is you got to come with like a check for $1,000.
I think it's 100.
I thought it was 1,000. It might be 100.
Maybe it is 1,000.
And you can get your name on the ballot right here, and like people will line up. They're big. They're the one guy that they talked about who wore a firefighter boot.
Vermin Supreme?
Yeah. Yes.
If you know who Vermin Supreme is,
if you've ever ridden his ponies,
he was a political candidate. Yeah, you can learn all about him in New Hampshire. They talked about him. But yeah, it was a beautiful tour. Touring these state houses has always been really enjoyable. Okay, so interesting thing about New Hampshire is the way their political system works. So first of all, they have like more seats in their House of Representatives than almost any other state.
It's like 2,400 people to one like representative or something like that. It's like very small number of people.
Yeah, they have like over 400 representatives in there, and it is a tiny state. And what's crazy is that if somebody in that house, any of those people, raise something that they'd like to go on for legislation, it gets a vote. And so they were telling us this political system is crazy because they'll have stuff pop up on the ballot all the time that it doesn't get accepted, but they have to vote through it. And so they were talking about how in New Hampshire, there's people who are, wanting to secede and actually abolish government. And so they actually had 10 representatives or so vote to secede from America, from the United States. And they were telling us, like, this is where you can go to get something like that on the ballot easily because it has to go to vote. And so it was really interesting to hear the perspectives that people had on that political system. It's very different.
Yeah, it was interesting because they were talking about how after that vote had come up, there were a group of other representatives that were like, these people should lose their jobs because it's like the act of doing that would be like they considered it like up towards of like treasonous, and it was crazy. And it's where with how few people you need. I don't know if we were planning on talking about these, but the free staters that are in their political government. If you don't know what a free stater is, they're pretty much like I wouldn't say anarchists, but they're like completely anti-government, and they think that we should not have a government. Basically, just
that is what people have told us about them.
Yes. Sorry. Correction. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of those points. If you're listening in the podcast right now, one of the things we're trying to do is understand people's perceptions of political landscapes. And this is a tough one. It's one of those that can be a little uncomfortable to talk about because we don't know anybody who would be called a free stater.
Mm-hmm.
But from what people are telling us, there are people who are moving to New Hampshire specifically because you can get elected a lot easier there. There's so many opportunities for election to try to sow dissent into government in general, to try to destroy the government. And people are very concerned about them. There are people who will talk about this at length. If you ask them, you say the word free stater, they'll go on a rant about how dangerous this is and how they're afraid of like these people getting a control in the government. And we're sitting here like, whoa, we've never heard of anything like this. You know, it was way over our heads. But we never got the chance to really talk to anyone who inhabits that.
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say they're interesting because they don't run with like any specific party. They'll say from what we've been told is that their committees will be like, okay, what is it easier to win this section as a Republican or as a Democrat? And they'll be like, okay, if it's easier as a Democrat, run as a Democrat. Or if it's easier as a Republican, run as a Republican just to get in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if somebody was telling us, it doesn't matter what position's available, if it's a dog catcher. They'll try to like just get in there. I'm assuming dog catcher might not be, but like if it's like a secretary, and like, okay, try to become the secretary and just work your way up, work your way up, work your way up.
Yeah, that is wild. And it's an important thing for us to highlight because so many people actually were talking about this issue that we ran into. I noticed that when people were talking about that, they were very concerned. They were very concerned. They seemed very afraid, and they were very certain that this is not good and that something needs to be done about it. We even met people who were organizing to like find these people and make sure that they did not get elected, and that anybody who was not in this group would be able to get elected over them. That was wild.
Yeah.
That was really something. Something to learn. Also, we learned that New Hampshire is the land of a lot of firsts. Everybody told us how New Hampshire's a first and they list a whole bunch of things, and it was pretty funny. You ended up doing magic for all these people in the State House, including some politicians.
Yep, that was cool. It started out with just a bunch of tour guides. By the way, their gift shop is the first place that we found that has the state capitol book.
Yeah.
So good job on that. We went to like four state capitals and nobody had the book where you can like get stamped that you've visited each capital.
Yeah.
But yeah, started out doing a couple tricks for. I think it was for Nick starting out with the guy that gave us our tour, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, a couple more. Eventually had like 4 or 5 of the people who were working in the gift shop, doing the tours there, and then all of a sudden these 3 guys walk in, and turns out they're either part of their like local like Senate or House. I don't remember which one, but yeah, did probably about 20 minutes of magic for everybody that was there. A lot of fun. Everybody seemed to take to it pretty well.
Yeah, that was awesome. It was really fun. They were really excited, and it was a great way to bond. That's the cool thing. That's the theme of New Hampshire. A lot of magic, which I want to say to you, man, good job. Whenever there was an opportunity for you to do magic in New Hampshire, you did it. You looked for those opportunities, and as an artist, it can be tough, right, to feel like I'm not a monkey, don't just tell me to perform, right? You created such authentic performance experiences where it was like, it wasn't forced, it wasn't like, hey, I'm a magician, watch me. It was like you built rapport, and then you're like, I actually do magic, would you like to see it? And everybody wanted to see it, and it felt like, you know, you would become so much closer to them, they become so close to our tour and us through those connections. So nice job, man.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah, that was awesome. So yeah, we did that, and then at night, we went looking for glasses to drink our whiskey out of for our podcast. So we wanted to have some nice glasses. You know, today we just got like regular coffee cups from wherever.
Full of coffee, not whiskey.
Yeah, full of coffee. Um, but yeah, we want to get some nice glasses, feature that bottle that was given to us, and we did that. We finally found something to work.
I think they were like larger shot glasses that almost looked like sized down versions of like, I don't know, like tumblers that you would like see that people just drinking out of in their kitchen.
Yeah,
That was interesting.
they were fun. And then we went to this place called Cheers.
Cheers.
If you're ever in Concord, go to Cheers.
Great food. Their scallops, bacon wrapped scallops.
Oh my God. Such good food. And we sat down at the bar, and it was like a party. For like 3 hours, we were in this bar, maybe 2, I don't know, it felt like 3. And we were talking to our bartender, we were talking to the manager, everybody around the bar. It was just an unbelievable time, sharing stories, having a blast, enjoying good food, having some good drinks. And it felt like we were really a part of the Concord community that night. Thank you, everyone there. If you're listening, some of you might be following. Thank you. And that was an amazing night. Really felt like we got to know you. It was really special to us. So
one thing that was really cool, the manager, assistant manager who we're talking to, she was like, you guys need something. I want to give you guys something like to remember like your time here. So she was like looking for shirts and things like that, or hats, and eventually she was like, your beer glasses, the glasses that you were drinking out of. She's like, they were for a local brewery in the area, had the area code of the of Concord on it, and they ended up giving us those. So we were rolling around with a couple pint glasses from Cheers, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, we would have used them, had a drink here, but we're in a library.
So
can't do that in the library. But yeah, it was awesome. Did that, and then we went to, they told us, so New Hampshire Concord has this tiny little casino.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like really cheap. You can play for like really small amounts of money.
Something like that.
Yeah, like $2 minimum bets. And so we're like, oh, okay, let's go see if we can meet some people there and like hang out. We go there. This is the funniest little casino I've ever seen in my life.
Everything went to charity. All the money that was all the profits went to charity, so it was really cool. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, it was really cool. Profits went to charity. It was so funny because there's a law that says the max amount of money you can ever bet. We were playing like a version of blackjack, Spanish 21, and there's a law that says the max amount of money you can bet is $10. So they created a workaround where they added these little extra bets. It's the same hand, like if you're playing one hand of cards, and you have like the main place you put your bet, and then it says go for it, and they're just literally different places to put another $10 bet.
So you can put a max of $40 down.
Yeah, and so just by creating 2 different circles and then a third circle and a fourth circle, you could bet up to $40, and the state approved it. And the casino was talking about like, this is how funny this is. They like cheated their way around it. It was just goofy.
And it used to be like it used to be like a $5 max, and then it worked its way up to like 10, and now there's I guess they're talking about moving it up again. Yeah. So eventually there'll just be like another place.
But it was fun, like hanging out there, talking to some more local people, and captioning some stories, and then we headed back and we watched the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
That was fun.
If you guys like that show, we're totally on it. Whenever we stop at a hotel, we're catching up. So,
really good show, actually. I really enjoyed it. Big Tolkien fan, Lord of the Rings fan, Hobbit. But yeah, that's one I was excited about.
And I just want to mention that by watching that show, it's been amazing because there's so many people who are interested in Lord of the Rings that if we bring that up and we talk about the show, it's an instant way to kind of fall into conversation with somebody and get excited.
2 people in the last week, just 2 of our hosts in the last week have been fans of the show, so it was fun.
Yeah, it's incredible. But that was good. So we spent that time in Concord, and it was really nice. But then we wake up the next day, we go to this coffee shop, which I want to shout out, the Brothers Cortado. Oh my gosh, an amazing coffee shop in Concord. They made us a special pour-over coffee, even though they didn't have it on the menu yet. They sat and talked with us for a while, the owners, and it was just a beautiful space.
Hung out for like an hour after they closed and everything.
Yeah. We go there the next morning, and we're hanging out. We're getting a little work done, getting ready to leave. and all of a sudden you're like, I don't feel good.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling too hot.
You're like, I'm gonna go take my temperature or
Feeling a
something.
little extra hot, actually.
Yeah. And what did you have, like 101 fever at the time?
101 or something. Well, I think it was like 99, and then like an hour later I checked it again, and it was like 101, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, you looked miserable. We're not going to go deep into that on this podcast. We might do a whole episode over our time when we were sick, because we ended up being so sick that we shot back home to Ohio. We ended up spending several days just locked up in your parents' house, recovering and then getting ready. We'll probably do an episode on that because there's a lot to highlight there about what happened when we kind of got pulled out of the tour. We lost our momentum, kind of had a chance to think about the immense weight of spending a week in every single state again. And then we had to re-engage and come back. We're back on tour, we're moving, we're rock and rolling. So we'll leave that for another episode. But the good news is we went through that whole scenario, and the people we were going to stay with that night, we told them we couldn't stay with them. We don't want to get anybody sick. They let us come back once we were ready, to get back on the road. And so we were able to just pick the trip up right where we had left off, go to Laconia, stay with this beautiful couple, Karen and Tom. They're a retired couple. Karen's a retired occupational therapist. Tom is a retired gardener, professional gardener. He used to take care of different properties, ran his own business, gardening for people.
Gardened for the college at one point in time, too?
It was a school. I think it was a private school.
Private school.
And, oh my gosh, we get to their place, beautiful, full garden in the front. There's an apple tree around the side, and then there's a giant garden in the back. It's unbelievably beautiful, the house they put together. And we walk in, and we sit down with them, and oh my God. It just felt like we walked into the most beautiful home. They were so kind, talked about all kinds of stuff. And let's get into that a little bit. We talked about a lot with Karen and Tom. What was the most, what sticks out to you from what we talked about with them?
So, well, I would say sticks out the most was probably all the traveling they did. I think just because it's so relevant to what we're doing currently. But I think Tom took like 2-3 years where he just lived and traveled and worked in different places. He would go help out on a farm somewhere, and then go travel to the next little area, go help out on another farm, take his skill set that he had built. And yeah, I'd say that's probably some of the bigger stuff that we talked about. That, and we spent a little bit of time talking about the whole Free Stater issue and things like that. But I'd say, yeah, the time that they had spent traveling was probably my favorite.
That was amazing. He like literally hitchhiked his way around the country and stay in random places and do work for people. That's crazy. And then that night was really cool is we went to a local show. They're really good friends, which was this couple, this older couple. The guy, Phil, is a child psychologist, and he teaches at a local university, and then he does child psychology. And Janet is an artist, their husband and wife, and they're an acoustic duo. And they did a bunch of covers of like classic rock and stuff like that.
The Sweet Bloods.
The Sweet Bloods. Yeah. And we went to like this special, I think it was like Hertz Turkey Farm.
Yeah, something like that.
Specialized in turkey dinners. We had Thanksgiving. I had Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, it was amazing.
They do Thanksgiving dinner every single day.
Every day. I could do that every day. It was amazing. And the coolest thing is we were there with Karen's mom and her mom's husband. Right? It's not her dad.
I think her mom's boyfriend.
Boyfriend?
They're not married.
They're not married?
Nope.
Oh.
Karen actually made a joke that she's like, don't say anything, but they're living in sin. Joking.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they're like in their 80s, and they've been together for like the last like 5 or 10 years. I think it was 10 years actually. But yeah, when you're in your 80 years old, I don't think you need to go back and get married again.
Wow. Yeah, that was amazing. John, I remember, because John was the guy. I was talking to him for a while. He had me crying, talking about his life, talking about when he had lost his wife. They had both lost their spouses, and then they found each other through a series of events. Like they just went to one event and they were there together, and then another event they were there together, and then another event they were there together, and it was just like almost like a divine intervention. They just kind of came together and built this beautiful life together. And he was talking about how grateful he was for his life and every day that he gets to wake up. And I was just sitting there listening to this guy, and I'm like, man, that's the way to embrace life right here. This guy is really thankful, truly grateful for the life that he was living. So that was awesome. Music was great.
Yep.
It was a great time.
I ended up doing a halftime show for them. They took a little break and they were like, "Want to do something?" I was prompted, but like beforehand. But yeah, ended up doing probably half dozen tricks that night, and all across the bar, which is a little closer to kind of like one of my home bases for performing. Got to go around a little bit more, like pull people up and become involved, and thought it was fun. It seemed like people enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, it was great. There was a full bar of people all around, and you're doing magic, putting together a show. You're involving tons of people. It was great. That was like it was a professional halftime show. It was
Super Bowl, call me up.
Super Bowl. I think Rihanna is the talent this year. So Rihanna, do you need a magician? This is the guy.
Do it. We can make it happen.
Yeah, that would be great. First magician to perform in a Super Bowl.
No.
A halftime show?
No, I'm pretty sure. I want to say one of the Blackstone Jr. did at one point in time. Wow. Did like a huge show long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Super Bowl. Might be wrong on that one.
Well, it's been long enough.
It's been a long time.
That's crazy. See how we did that? I had a really powerful moment that night because if you don't know my story, I lost both my parents in childhood. And I talk about this, I just always bring it up because it's a core part of my identity. And I lost my mom when I was like 9, my dad when I was 17. And my parents were true hippies. And they loved that era of music, you know, The Who, Bob Seger, Tom Petty, Grateful Dead, the Beatles. That was their life. Like they loved just listening to music, having a good time with people, and just embracing love and life. And so I'm listening to all these songs that I knew my parents would love. And I'm looking at Karen and Tom, who built this life that they really enjoyed together. They're drinking IPAs with us, and they're enjoying this music. Unbelievably beautiful couple. And I just thought, wow, if my parents had learned how to create a life like they had, this is what their life would look like right now. They're about the same age my parents would have been. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly what their life would have looked like. It's a better ending to their story. And I started crying, and I was just sitting there thinking to myself, for those of you out there who are struggling right now, and you're not happy with your life, and you're not experiencing a meaningful life, and you feel like you don't really have a purpose, it's like, keep looking, find it. Align yourself with something that feels good, that would be a story you want to tell your children or somebody you care about one day, or, you know, just something you'd like to read about. Because when I looked at Karen and Tom, I saw that. And that really woke me up. That was one of the most important parts of this tour for myself. So it was really cool. And then I called out Turn the Page by Bob Seger. They asked for requests. I thought they were kidding. And they played it. And I sang along with it. And I was sitting there and I just thought, my dad, if he can see me somewhere, I don't know if it works like that. If he can see me, he's smiling. He's happy. He's like, that's exactly what I want for my son. So that was pretty damn cool, man. I love that night.
They didn't have Joker by Steve Miller Band, though. My one request. And I was like, no, it's fine.
That's funny. They tried.
They tried. I give them a lot of credit for that.
Anything else about that night?
No, I don't think so. I think we ended up going from there, basically shut down the bar with them, and
Yeah.
went back, and I was ready for bed. So
Yeah. Yeah, I got to talk to the Sweet Bloods. Did you talk to them at all?
Mm-hmm.
They were awesome. Yeah. Sweet band, and talk some psychology with Phil. It's great. It's really ironic talking psychology with Phil because one of my undergraduate advisors' names was Phil. Phil, if you're listening, hi, I met another Phil. You're both awesome. You're both very cool. So it must be the name. But that was good. Yeah. And then the next day we woke up, spent some time hanging out with Tom, talking with him, drinking some delicious coffee.
He walked out, just picked stuff out of the garden, took it straight from garden to frying pan, and cooked us breakfast.
Yeah, and got us their own eggs. They went out and got their own eggs, cooked us up some eggs and a vegetable kind of medley that was really good, and some fresh blueberries out of their blueberry patch. And we had some amazing breakfast. He French pressed us some delicious coffee. Oh my God. Tom, thank you.
Yeah.
Tom is one of the sweetest, kindest men I've ever met. Honestly. He's just a beautiful person. Spending time with him that morning was great. And then we went off into town in Laconia.
Yep. Drove around for a little while, experienced Laconia and the next town over.
Guilford.
Guilford, yes.
Yeah.
Then decided to come back, got some sushi, which was pretty good. I was pretty happy with it, actually.
Yeah, a little sushi, quick lunch. Yeah.
And then cruised up to their library. Little cool library, not anything too big, but really, really, really nice on the inside. And we filmed another podcast, got caught up on all of our podcasts that week.
Yeah.
And that went, and you'll probably see that. I think I just finished it today, so we'll be posting that.
Yeah.
This is Wednesday, so we're a little behind.
Yeah, you see Vermont, film Vermont, in a beautiful little room in that library. And that was awesome. And then we saw the store. This is crazy, guys. We're about to tell you. This story is nuts. And it might not be over either. So we saw the store was called Chaos and Kindness. And I saw it and I was like, I want to go in there. I want to see what's going on in there. And so we did the library. We got done. Pretty tired. After we filmed the podcast, pretty tired. Just because it's a lot of work and all that reflection. We're thinking about everything again. And it's like, whoa, feel really fulfilled at the end of these. And so we're like, well, let's just walk into that store, see what's up. Crazy store. Absolutely crazy. And it turns out this store was a store that was created by this extremely famous rock group, and really the leader of this rock group, Justin, from Recycled Percussion. Shout out to Recycled Percussion.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing. And Chaos and Kindness was one of the coolest stores. We walk in and we meet this amazing woman. Her story's on our Instagram, Sandy. She's just telling us all about this. They give 40% of their proceeds. It's a lot of clothing and really cool, fun stuff in the store. 40% goes to local initiatives that support suicide prevention and mental health mainly. And some other initiatives, mostly mental health. And then they have, so here's a crazy thing. This group is a famous group that won America's Got Talent. Had a Vegas show for I think 10 years or something.
Yeah, something crazy.
They were in Vegas for 10 years. And now this guy came back to his home area of New Hampshire. They all live together, he said. So it's him, his wife, who is a former New England Patriots cheerleader, and just dedicated this mission of empowering the community. Two other guys, drummers and friends, and one guy does roller skating and backflips while roller skating.
Backflips on
and
roller skates, and I was like...
Yeah, and then they have two people who have different disabilities, which they call other abilities, which I like that framework. And they live with them and go on to the shows with them and perform with them. And they all live together, they perform together in this local church that they turned into a theater. That is just this crazy mess of art and variety show that they put together. And we got free tickets at Chaos and Kindness. Thank you, Sandy.
Sandy, she just wanted to tell us all about all the good stuff that Justin's done, from going and just handing out like money to people who he met on the street who kind of like brightened his day, or going down to like where I forget which hurricane it was that he went and visited like the wreckage. It was like a month later. He said he walked into this woman's home and they didn't have running water still and things like that. And he just handed her like, I don't know how much money it was.
Crazy amount of money.
Like over $20,000 just to help rebuild, and like to buying some people a van who they were, I guess, living out of their van trying to travel, and their van had broke down. He bought them a new vehicle just to try to help people out and be a positive influence for somebody's life.
Yeah, that was nuts. The guy's beautiful. All right, so crazy thing, Justin's backstory. From what we heard, he grew up with a really kind of rough home life. He had lost one of his parents, I think it was his dad, when he was young.
I don't remember.
Very young, about the same age I had lost my mom. And just grew up in a really rough household, but he developed this love of drumming. So he would drum on anything. It was one of those stories. Have you ever seen people like that, where they drum on anything, they make something of it? And he had this vision, and he kept growing that vision of building a community of people who wanted to do good, wanted to embrace life, and really tackle life's challenges in a way that would like make them grow. And he built this amazing group. They formed it together, and now they have this amazing team of people who go out and inspire the world. And their big message is like, go out, make a life that you really want to live, and at the same time, be super kind, be there for people. And they promote this message of kindness and also just being authentically who you are, which is the word that I think they use chaos for. So it's chaos and kindness.
Create some chaos, share some kindness, I think is what their thing was.
I love that, man. It was really cool. I say it might not be over because I've reached out to Justin. Justin is actually one of 50 athletes that qualified for this advanced Ironman in Hawaii. He's on his way there.
He's on there right now. Is he out there now?
Yeah, they just got on a flight today to head to Hawaii. He'll train and then do it. Well, many of you might know I'm also a coach, a performance coach. And so I've reached out to Justin's team. My goal is to get over there, do Hawaii next week, be with them, and coach him through this Ironman. I'm going to take him to win it. I don't know. I want to do everything to help this guy. So maybe we'll see Justin in Hawaii. Maybe we'll end up there. But the fact is meeting someone who inspires you to want to help their mission like that, that's great. I hope we do that for some of you people. We inspire you in some way to travel or get excited or embrace your life in a new way. I would consider that a job very well done. Sweet. So into that free show?
Yep, great show.
Great show. And it was full. There were
absolutely.
Like a couple seats when we got there, and luckily we were able to have the ones that were left over. So fun. Fire alarm got pulled.
Yep, fire alarm got pulled. Everybody had to run outside.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we come back in to this entire sequence of like fire-related jokes, and we're like, oh, they put this together in the middle of this. Turns out it was ironically just the next part of their act.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was super funny, and they really handled that chaos that happened in their building and in their show extremely well.
Yeah.
You could tell they've been professionally doing this in Vegas for years because they just, amazing production.
The egg toss was ridiculous. They start out with this egg toss. It was one of the sets in the variety show was this egg toss. They kind of like battle back and forth between the right side and the left side of the room. But they started out probably like, I don't know, 10 feet.
Well, walk it through, right? They pick an audience member on each side of the room. And one person on stage is throwing the egg back and forth with one person on this other side. Yeah. So half the audience is cheering for this person in their toss, the other half for another person. Now keep going. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they start probably like, I don't know, 10 feet apart. And every time they get it successfully, they're like, okay, back up a little bit. And they work their way back to where both teams are throwing the egg from stage over the entire crowd to like on the stairs that are leading up to the mezzanine or the balcony that's up above. and they're like tossing. Has to be like 60 feet plus, and they're catching this, and they're not breaking this egg, and then eventually, I'll say our side won. Other side ended up breaking, and he worked all the way to the max distance they could probably even possibly go from like the stage all the way back to like the fire exit on the second floor. And then I think, honestly, I think it was the guy whichever member of the Recycled Percussion had tossed it a little short and ended up hitting the wall.
Yep.
But still, it was the most insane egg throwing competition that I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it was super fun because you could see that the way they structured it, the people who were doing it in the audience were like so excited, but they also felt this pressure. Like, I got to do a good job for my team.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really powerful seeing how they engage with that.
Everybody's wearing ponchos because there's bubbles getting shot everywhere. Ended up
smashing
fruit with a giant sledgehammer at the end.
Yeah.
As almost like a tribute to a comedian who used to do that.
Yeah, Gallagher.
Gallagher. That's right.
Yeah, he actually got the rights. He called Gallagher. Gallagher used to go to their shows in Vegas, and he called him and said, "I'd like the rights." And the story was, Gallagher told Justin, I have a tooth that needs work done. If you call my dentist and pay for my tooth to get done, you can have the rights to my show." Like a funny deal. And they put it all together. He's got it now. Awesome. And yeah, that was amazing. So we do that show. Awesome time. All out of nowhere experience. It was like 5 p.m. we got gifted tickets to a 7 p.m. show. Not to mention, right before that, we went back with Karen and Tom and had another delicious meal. Veggies from the garden, pasta that they had made, and then homemade apple crisp from their apples.
Really good.
So good.
Really, 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 really good.
And great conversation. We get back, and in the morning, to round out New Hampshire, the last thing that we did in New Hampshire is we went with Karen and Tom to a Unitarian Universalist church that they used to be a part of, where Karen used to teach Sunday school, and they used to be a part of that for a long time. And so we were talking about religion and our pasts with learning about religions, and it kind of got the conversation about how they used to go to this church. And so Karen ended up seeing that she liked what the sermon was going to be about that next Sunday, and it's been years since they've gone. And it gave them the motivation to say, you know what, why don't we all do that together? So we got up together, we had a delicious breakfast together, again, more veggies from the, garden, and we all got in the car together, us, and they were calling us the kids, and so we got in the car, we were their kids for the weekend, and we went to the church with them, and they got to see all their old friends and have conversation, we got to meet them, and that was really enjoyable. It was something. It felt like we really had a special engagement with their life. A lot of touch points, really felt connected. So, yeah.
And we had been to a couple of UU services before, and if you don't know what UU is, it's basically a community that comes together, and it doesn't really matter what religion you are, but they want to be able to create an environment where anybody can grow spiritually, whatever that means to you. So they'll teach basically concepts from anywhere from Buddhism to Hinduism to Christianity, basically just giving this positive and encouraging message that literally anybody could take and a piece of and impact their own life with it. So it was really cool.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Got to listen to a hurdy-gurdy.
A hurdy-gurdy. If you've never seen a hurdy-gurdy, it is the coolest instrument. It's like a piano stringed or cranked instrument.
Yeah, it's like if you mix a piano with a violin, and instead of bowing it like bowing the violin, there's like this crank, and it creates like a continuous bow. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, and so we listened to that. We talked to some people there, and that was how we rounded out New Hampshire. It was a great time. I want to say thank you to everybody we met in New Hampshire. We really got to engage with people deeply in that state, got to learn about ourselves. And so as we're heading to this podcast, I guess I'd have to ask, thinking about our time in New Hampshire, I'm going to take a different spin on this. Who does Donovan want to become? Thinking about what we've talked about or, gone through here.
Good, because I've been sitting here trying to think of like the answer to the original question like half this time. But who does he want to become? Donovan wants to become reliable and a little more bold. That would be who Donovan would want to become, because that would serve Donovan's life and the hopeful trajectory that he has set out for himself. So that's who Donovan would like to become, while keeping the elements of being kind and generous that he already has.
I love that. That's an awesome answer. I could see where you were more bold that week too. And so it's cool that getting a taste of that. That's awesome. Cool.
About Mark.
All right. Well, that's for me. Who does Mark want to become? Thinking about New Hampshire, there's two things that I come away from. Mark wants to be a father. I just feel a deep calling to raise children. I love helping kids develop. So either to be a father, or if for some reason that opportunity doesn't present itself, to volunteer with helping kids. To find a medium where I can go in and help kids and just be a part of their development. I love watching kids grow. I love helping them grow. I don't know why. I just don't get annoyed by them. Everybody I talk to my age, and even in the past, they get annoyed by kids so easily. And I can see why, but I don't. I love that. So Mark wants to become someone who is consistently serving children in his community in some way. And the second thing is Mark wants to be unapologetically excited. Like, I'm sick of modulating my excitement in anticipation that people will think I'm too much. I don't mind going into a situation and realizing somebody's tired or having a rough day and they're not, going to jive well with, oh, hey, how's it going? I'm so excited to see you. But anticipating that people don't want to receive someone excited, forget that, man. I'm sick of that. And I've watched Justin build his whole life by being unapologetically excited and free. And he impacts lives on the daily by doing that. And yes, there's people who get annoyed by that. And I'm totally cool with it. If you don't like someone who's super excited, that's fine. But it's like being afraid to do that. I've heard people in my life tell me, you're too much. You're annoying. And it's very few people. And at that time, they weren't in a great headspace. So they weren't ready for someone who was very excited. That's okay. I like that part of me. I like living life from that excited nature. And I think it rounds out, it creates a diversity of energy where there's going to be some people who aren't super excited all the time and they're more calm, and some people who are just really excited and in love with life. I like living life from that. And I want to embrace that more. I want to stop being afraid to. So yeah, New Hampshire was freaking amazing. Loved it. Anything else you want to add from New Hampshire?
Good job to little pat ourselves on the back. Good job jumping back into New Hampshire after taking a week and a half, 2 weeks-ish off, being sick. And I was very prepared for the last 2 days in New Hampshire to have just been, okay, we're checking the box at this point in time. We hit all 7 days in this state and just finishing it off. But no, I think we did a really good job jumping back into New Hampshire and giving it what it deserved.
Yeah, we went all in on New Hampshire. New Hampshire went all in on us. Guys, if you've listened to the end of this podcast episode, let us know what you think. Definitely like this episode, give us a rating, do everything you can to feed the algorithm so we can get this out there to more people and so we can keep refining this craft. And give us some comments, some feedback. Let us know what you think of the podcast. Let us know what else you want to hear. We love doing this tour, and we want to share as much as we possibly can with you so you can be a part of it. So thank you. Great time, and we'll be back next week to talk about Maine.
Maine, yep.
Going to the coast. All right. Have a great one. Thank you.
See you, everyone.